Hello and welcome. The movie begins with a young man named Joe. He is wandering around and sees an old, historic-looking house. He decides to go inside and take a look. Inside the house, everything is old, dusty, and covered in sheets. But in the middle of the dusty silence, a wind-up clock on the wall is still ticking, and it chimes with a strangely clear sound. Joe gets a curious feeling and decides to look upstairs. As he climbs the wooden steps, he starts to hear terrifying sounds. A loud scream, the shing of a knife, and a sickening neck-snapping sound. Suddenly a dead body falls from the ceiling right in front of him. Joe screams and wakes up. He is in his room. It was all a nightmare. He looks around, catches his breath, and, realizing it was just a dream, he goes right back to playing his ghost-themed video game. He is deep in the game, and the action is getting intense when his mother comes into the room and yells at him to get dressed. He has to put on some nice clothes and go to the living room. His entire family is gathering for an important meeting about his grandfather's will. In the living room, the family lawyer is reading the grandfather's will out loud for everyone to hear. The will is very detailed. The grandfather carefully lists all the property and money that his children will receive. But then, it comes to the part for his beloved grandson, Joe. Unfortunately, the grandfather died right at that moment, before he could write down what Joe would get. The will just stops. This means Joe, the grandfather's favorite, gets absolutely nothing. The whole family can't believe it. They ask the lawyer to show them the will. They all crowd around the paper and see that it's true. Joe's part is blank. The rest of the family starts happily talking about what they will do with their new property. But Joe, the only one who got nothing, just sits there feeling depressed. Seeing him so sad, his older brother comes over to cheer him up. He tells Joe, property is just like magic. And then he promises to give Joe an old house he owns in a place called Pathum Thani. The brother is mostly joking, just trying to make Joe feel better. But Joe takes him completely seriously and thanks his brother over and over. Joe immediately gets an idea. He will sell this new house. He goes to a local loan shark named Mashai and borrows 500,000 baht. With this money, the first thing he does is go out and buy a 200,000 baht high-end gaming system. The next morning, Joe meets with a real estate agent to go and sell the house. The two of them drive out of the city, but the phone's GPS stops working. It leads them to a place with no roads, and they get completely lost. The agent suggests giving up and going back tomorrow. But Joe is desperate. He tells the agent that if he can sell the house this week, he will give him an extra 5% commission. The agent agrees, and they get out of the car and walk through the fields until they finally find the house. It's the same old house from Joe's nightmare. Joe opens the front door and they go inside. He opens all the windows to get some fresh air. He starts showing the agent the old furniture, trying to make it sound valuable. But as he's talking, the agent sees something scary outside. A person is slowly walking toward the house, getting closer and closer. The agent, terrified, thinks it's a ghost. He runs away. Joe runs after him, trying to stop him. When he looks back at the ghost, he sees it's just an old uncle from the neighborhood who is hunting for frogs. Annoyed, Joe goes back into the house and decides to sleep there. In the middle of the night, just like his dream, the old clock starts to chime. Then Joe hears loud sounds from upstairs. He grabs his phone, turns on the flashlight, and creeps up the stairs. When he gets to the top, he sees terrifying visions. A person's head being cut off, someone being stabbed with a knife, and another person being strangled and the body falling on the floor. This time it's not a dream. Joe screams in pure terror, runs out of the house and doesn't stop. The next morning Joe comes back, but he's not alone. He has brought some monks with him. The monks help him by putting magical charms and protective symbols all around the house to keep the ghosts out. But Joe is still too scared to stay there by himself. He finds the old frog-hunting uncle and makes him a deal. He will give him free alcohol if the uncle stays the night with him. That night, the two of them are drinking and having a good time. Suddenly, a loud thunderstorm starts. The uncle, who always hunts for frogs in the rain, gets excited and immediately leaves to go hunting. Joe is now alone and terrified. He starts praying to the Buddha shrine in the house to keep the ghosts away. But with every time he bows his head, a ghost appears next to him. When he looks up, there are several ghosts, and they are all praying with him. He slowly turns his head, and all the ghosts turn and stare right at him. Joe freaks out and hides behind the shrine. He tells the ghosts to get out of his house. But the ghosts tell him that they have lived here for a long time and have nowhere else to go. They start to float towards him, trying to scare him away. Just then, the frog uncle comes back. He forgot his bottle of alcohol. His sudden appearance scares the ghosts, and they instantly disappear. But the uncle just grabs his bottle and leaves again. Joe, desperate not to be alone, runs after the uncle and goes all the way back to his mother's house. The next morning, Joe decides to find out the story behind these ghosts. He searches online for the history of the house. He finds out that the house he inherited once belonged to a very rich family. One day, the parents went on a trip, leaving their daughter and 2 servants at home. While they were gone, robbers broke into the house. The daughter and the servants all mysteriously disappeared and were never seen again. Now that Joe knows their backstory, he feels sympathy for them. He goes back to the house to talk to the ghosts. He shows them the news story on his phone, proving that he knows they were murdered. He asks them what they need to do to move on and be reincarnated. The beautiful ghost, whose name is Anung, tells him that he must find their bodies first. Joe promises that he will help them. Then, Joe shows Anung a family photo he found. Anung, seeing her parents, asks Joe what happened to them. Joe decides to tell her a kind lie. He tells her that her parents looked for her for a long time, and when they couldn't find her, they sadly moved away and lived a long, peaceful life. This, however, was not the truth. The real story was that after she disappeared, the court suspected her father of the murder. He and other people connected to her were sentenced to death. Her mother, after losing her husband and her daughter, died of a broken heart. But Joe keeps this terrible secret to himself. Anung believes his lie and is happy, thinking her parents had a good life. The next day, Joe keeps his promise and starts digging in the yard, looking for their bodies. While he's digging, his mom calls. She tells him that Machai Dai has been calling him. Joe is now stressed about his debt. He goes to a local fair to clear his head. He plays a game of throwing balls at cans. Nearby, he sees a haunted house ride. He hears people screaming and decides to go check it out. He walks through the haunted house, but it's not scary at all. It's just one little person in a costume trying to scare everyone. As Joe is about to leave, a young woman who is scared inside the ride grabs onto him and won't let go. Her boyfriend, waiting outside, gets jealous. Just then, the frog-hunting uncle arrives. The uncle is covered in mud from head to toe. Joe asks him what happened. The uncle explains that he was coming to see Joe earlier, but he fell into a deep ditch in the ground near Joe's house. Just then, Joe's loan shark, Machai Dai, and his men find him at the fair. They are also covered in mud. Joe asks them, "Did you go to my house?" The loan shark just tells him to be careful and to pay his debt. Joe, having seen the cheap haunted house ride, suddenly gets a brilliant idea. He asks the loan shark to lend him another 50,000 baht, promising he can pay everything back, with interest. The loan shark agrees. Joe takes the money, buys supplies, and goes back to the ghosts. He tells them his new plan. They are going to open their own haunted house, using real ghosts. The ghosts, having nothing better to do, agree. The next day, Joe fixes up the house to look like an attraction. He stands on the road and stops people, telling them to come and see the scariest haunted house in the world. When the people go inside, they are met by Anong and the other real ghosts. It is way scarier than the cheap ride at the fair. The people run through the house screaming, trying to find the exit. Just as they get to the front door, the ghosts are waiting for them and give them one last scare. The haunted house is a huge success. After the customers run away, Joe and the ghosts celebrate. He tells them they are great actors. The 2 servant ghosts are so happy they go inside to practice their scaring techniques. Joe and the ghost Anong are left alone. He tells her about his video games. Then he turns on some music and teaches her how to dance. The 2 of them dance together and Anong disappear. After that, Joe enjoys the beauty of sunrise. Joe's haunted house becomes incredibly famous. People come from all over, and it gets a lot of attention on social media. The local fair even moves to be closer to the house. New shops open up, and the whole area becomes a popular spot. One day, Joe decides to do something special for Anong. He takes her, as an invisible ghost, to the fair. He wants her to experience all the happiness she missed in her life. They play games, he buys her food, which she can smell, and they have a wonderful night together. A few days later, the loan shark, Machai Dai, comes back to collect his money. Joe is now very confident. He challenges Machai Dai, telling him to go through the haunted house. He says, "If you make it, I'll be waiting at the exit with your money." Machai Dai, who says he isn't afraid of ghosts, laughs and walks inside. A few minutes later, he is so terrified by the real ghosts that he has a heart attack and faints. An ambulance has to come and take him to the hospital. Joe, as promised, pays off his entire debt. Now that he is free from debt, Joe goes back to his original promise. He starts digging around the yard again, trying to find the ghost's bones. Anung watches him as he works. She asks him, "Are you digging again?" Joe tells her that his debt is paid, so now he can finally help her move on and be reincarnated. But Anung tells him that she is happy. She says that these past few weeks have been the happiest time of her whole life, and she doesn't mind staying here as a ghost. That night, Joe and the ghosts have a party to celebrate, but suddenly a group of drunk people from the fair show up and demand that the ghosts perform for them. The ghosts, being nice, put on a scary show. After a while, Joe tells the people that the ghosts are tired and asks them to go home. The group asks for one last dance. One of the girls in the group starts dancing with Joe. Anung watches this, and for the first time, she feels jealous. After everyone leaves, Joe sees that Anung is upset. He smiles, asks her to dance, and the two of them dance together alone in the house. Joe is now falling in love with Anung. He plants a tree in the yard to make the house look just like it did in an old photograph he found. But he starts to worry. He goes online and finds out that if a human lives with a ghost for too long, it can be dangerous, and the human can die. He gets scared. That night, Anung playfully tries to scare him, but Joe, filled with this new fear, falls down the stairs. The thought that she could hurt him, combined with what he read online, makes him panic. He leaves the house. He comes back later, only to find two robbers in the house. He tries to stop them, but there are two of them, and they knock him unconscious. Anung, seeing Joe hurt, becomes furious. She possesses Joe's body, and her first instinct is to kill the robbers. But as she is about to attack, she has a sudden flashback to her own violent murder. She can't do it. She lets the robbers go. The next day, Joe is desperate. He has to find a way to be with Anung. As he is thinking, his friend calls and invites him to a New Year's party. Joe gets a crazy idea. He tells Anung he wants to take her to the party. The next day, Joe invites his friend over. He gives his friend a drink that has been drugged. When the friend feels unconscious, Joe asks Anung to possess his friend's body. Anung agrees, so Joe and Anung, in his friend's body, go to the New Year's party. They walk hand in hand, just like a real couple. They go to all the places Anung used to know. They buy things, eat food, and take pictures. To the rest of the world, it just looks like two men are holding hands. Some people think it's a cute BL, boys love story, while others look at them with disgust. But in Joe's eyes, he only sees the beautiful, smiling Anung. They have a perfect night. They go back to the house together and watch the fireworks as the new year begins. The next morning, Joe wakes up, still hugging his friend's body. His friend wakes up, realizes he is in bed with another man, and freaks out. Joe tries to explain what happened, but his friend just thinks he is gay. That night, the friend comes back, very angry. He shows Joe a video on his phone of them dancing together at the party. He demands a real explanation. Joe, having no choice, tells him the truth. His house is haunted, and he is in love with a ghost. When his friend doesn't believe him, Anung appears to prove it. The friend is shocked, but he understands. He then sits Joe down and tells him the hard, sad truth. A human and a ghost can never be together in this life. It is impossible. Joe is heartbroken, but he still loves Anung. A few nights later, Anung is working at the haunted house, scaring people. She looks out and sees Joe talking to another girl. He is laughing with her. Anung feels a sharp pain of jealousy. She possesses the frog uncle's body, walks over to the girl's friend, and asks who the girl is. The friend tells her that the woman is Joe's ex-girlfriend. Anung, who only knows the word friend, asks him to explain what a girlfriend is. The man explains the difference. Anung suddenly realizes that Joe had lied to her. She watches them talk, and her heart fills with worry. The next day, Joe meets his ex-girlfriend again. He sees a painting that reminds them of their past, and they talk about old times. That night, Joe comes home, and the other ghosts tell him that Anung is very upset and scarier than usual. He goes upstairs and finds Anung crying. He confronts her, but she says she knows she is not his girlfriend, just a friend. She says that a human and a ghost can never be together, and that they can't be a normal couple. To prove his love and stop her fears, Joe takes Anung to the Buddha shrine in the house. He makes a sacred vow, promising that he will be loyal to her and will love her for as long as he lives. A few days later, Joe is visiting his mother. When he comes back to the house, he sees a horrifying sight. His older brother is there with a demolition crew, and they are destroying the house. Joe is furious. He tries to fight his brother, then he tries to stop the workers. But it's too late. He can only stand there and watch as his home, and Anung's home, is torn to pieces. He feels a terrible sense of guilt. That night, he goes to the ruins in the pouring rain. He brings Anung's favorite flowers and an offering, and he apologizes over and over. He calls out for Anung and the other ghosts, but they don't appear. He cries, feeling like he has failed her. As he is looking up at the sky, his foot hits something hard in the mud. He digs with his bare hands, and he finds them. Anong's bones. We then see a flashback to Anong's final moments. We see her happy life. And then the night the robbers broke in. They killed her and the servants. They buried them right there in the living room and used dark magic to hide the bodies. Then, Joe has a terrible realization. He remembers his own past life. He sees that the man who led the robbers, the man who killed Anong, was him. He was the killer in a past life. He is horrified and begs Anong for forgiveness. Anong's spirit appears. She tells him that she forgives him. She tells him to take care of himself. And then she says goodbye. But Joe cries, begging her not to leave him. The next day, Joe, keeping his promise, builds a beautiful, proper tomb for Anong. He decorates it with her favorite flowers. To see her face every day, he creates a successful video game based on her. Years pass. We see Joe as an old man. He sits in a chair with a vase of Anong's favorite flowers beside him, waiting. As the clock strikes midnight, he passes away. His spirit rises from his body. He is young again, and he is in the old house, which is new and beautiful. Anong is there, waiting for him. They smile, dance together, and are finally reunited. And with that, the story comes to an end. If you want to see more movies like this, please support this channel. Thank you to all the viewers for watching.